Let's discuss this now with lead Beckett University Politics and International Relations Senior Lecturer, Dr Olayinka Ajala. Dr Ajala, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for speaking to us on Africa Today. Let's talk about what Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso have in common outside of all three having decided to leave Ecowas.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having me. One thing they have in common is that they are some of the poorest countries in the region. They are all landlocked countries, so they depend on their neighbors to import through the seas. And they are also, the three of them have also all kicked France out of their country. France being the former colonial nation, they've all kicked France out of their country. So they have these things in common.
Now, what's surprising, I suppose, is that these are amongst the three poorest of the 15-member bloc. Why the need to quit ECOWAS?
I think it's more due to the frustration they have felt. So they gave three main reasons. The first reason they gave was that ECOWAS has imposed on them biting sanctions, which has impacted on their economies. Then they also talked about ECOWAS deviating from the principles of the founding fathers. So they alleged that ECOWAS now answer to foreign nations. And then the third one, which to be fair to them is a big problem, is the problem of insecurity. So in the last few years, all these three countries have suffered varying level of insecurity, attacks from jihadist groups in various proportions. And they feel that ECOWAS has not done enough as an organization to support them in the fight against insurgency.
Now, does military rule play a factor in either or in any of these three countries?
Well, military rule plays a factor in the sanctions, obviously, because all the sanctions were imposed after the military juntas took over power from democratically elected governments in these three countries. But apart from that, the countries have been battling with insecurity even long before the military took over. And one of the reasons given in all the three countries when the military took over was the inability of democratically elected governments to ward off or to fight insurgencies in the countries. So, but the key one, which was as a result of military intervention, is the sanctions imposed on these countries.
Now, how do the people of Niger perceive this shift? In fact, let's talk about Niger and Russia's military links. Those are seemingly unfolding at the moment. What do we know about that?
Well, what we know is that in December, Russia sent a delegation of senior Russia officials to Niamey, and Niger reciprocated in January when they also sent the Prime Minister and also with some senior members of the government to Russia. And then they had some agreement on security and economic development. And Niger is keen to replace France. But at the moment, we don't know what the economic and the security cooperation will be like. But one key thing that we know is Russia has promised to strengthen the military and also help them fight insurgency. It's still unfolding what the relationship will be like. After that, one other thing that's happened is that Niger also stopped issuing mining licenses, and they are in the process of reviewing the current mining licenses. And we all know that Niger is one of the largest producers of uranium in the region and even in Africa. So everyone is looking at how this would affect French companies that hold most of these licenses at the moment. So it's all strategically placed to replace Russia, to replace France with Russia.
So let's put France into the equation. because relations between France and Niger certainly seem to have suffered, and we do know that because of the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Many countries in the West, many countries in Europe have an anti-Russia stance at the moment. Is this likely to be exacerbated by this relationship? Certainly, the France-Niger relationship, is it likely to come under further strain because of this interaction between Niger and Russia?
It will, definitely. Russia France has closed its embassy in Niger, and as you reported in earlier in your reports today, you also mentioned the fact that Niger is trying to prevent French citizens from coming to the country. So the relationship will deteriorate further. And one key thing that everyone is looking at how it will unfold is the issue with uranium. France has vowed to protect its economic interest. You know, when Niger ordered the military to leave and they severed security relationship with France, France then responded by saying they will protect their economic interest. And the major economic interest of France in the country is in form of mining of uranium. So with the ongoing review of mining licenses in the country, there would likely be potential issues with France, because I think some of the mining licenses that the interesting thing is some of these licenses are actually expiring. So it might be easier for Niger to just not issue new ones to French companies and then look outside, probably to Russia or even China. But with the existing licenses, if they want to revoke that, then that would create further tension between Niger and France.
Now, there is one other small matter that we'd like to talk about, and that's the small problem of a pipeline, a gas pipeline, that's meant to run from Nigeria to Europe. And obviously the obstacle there is Niger. How is this all supposedly going to play out?
I actually wrote about this, I think it was last week, which is very interesting. And I argued in my article that I think one of the reasons why Russia is very keen to form this relationship and form it very quickly is to a very large extent make it more difficult for the construction of this pipeline. It's a mega project that is supposed to go from Nigeria to the EU through Niger. And we know that, as you rightly said, Russia is weakened in Europe. And Europe is very keen. One of the reasons why the multi-billion-dollar project was signed was to further reduce the reliance of European countries or EU countries on Russia. So Russia would want to in any way try to destabilize that project, because Russia gets a lot of money from their oil and gas, and any further move away from Russia on oil and gas especially would weaken the economy of Russia. So I think it's a calculated attempt by Russia to try and make the project more difficult. They can't stop it because there will be some form of negotiation. But Russia is trying to very large extent weaken that contract and make it more difficult for it to go ahead in order to ensure that their own supply to the EU. Niger, on the other hand, also see an opportunity here, because it's an opportunity for them to use as a leverage against the EU. Remember, they've cancelled the migration deals they had with the EU, which was called the Bazoum Law. This law prevented Niger from being used as a transit country. Now they've cancelled that. And the EU have also removed most of the aid that goes to Niger in return. So I think Niger, the junta, they are using this pipeline project as a card on their chest in order to increase their negotiating power and get some concession from the EU.
Dr. Ajala, I appreciate your time. That's only a conversation we'd like to keep following in the coming weeks.